And here you have a bond.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
We back. We back. 4 weeks in a row. We made it. You all made it. So happy to be here once again for our final class, where we're going to be getting into some nitty-gritty and talk about some next steps as well. Welcome. I'm Leslie Mac. If this is your first time here, I don't think I see anybody new. I don't think so. And with me, as always, is Dr. Roni Dean-Burren.
Hi, people.
Straight out of H-Town.
Straight
Represent. Quick functionality stuff. Y'all can type in questions into the questions bar in your little toolbar there. And you can put questions or you can even put comments. We'll be happy to read them. You can also hit the raise my hand and we will unmute your mic and you can talk together. We have plenty of prompts for folks to interact with us. And we can't do this in a poll because it's not a yes or no, but what I'd love to, as we're gonna start going through what the theme is have y'all just answer that question that I put into the chat as y'all were waiting in the waiting room, which is what are some adjectives you would use to describe what you need in a sisterhood circle? What are some ways that you would describe that? And while you're doing that, I'm gonna turn the mic over to Roni. She can talk a little bit about what we're gonna get into tonight.
Tonight is one of my favorite. I was telling Leslie today on our call, I say this every week. I was really looking forward to this week, but I think I'm looking forward to everything. So one of my favorite, my son is in here. Just get what you need, son. I'm in my office that he is now taken over as his office. So when I'm in here, he's like, so this week is defining the structure of sisterhood and how group chat saved my life. And so this one is so cool because so much of it is wrapped up in, I think, how Leslie and I obviously got together as just friends in general. And I'm going to talk about that some more later. She doesn't even know that, but I am. And then just how one of our sister circles, just how we set it up and what it ended up looking like and what it is looking like, and even as it is evolving, talking about that. So I'm super excited about looking at the structure of it and the structure of sister circles. I mean, that's really what it is. You call it sisterhood, sister circle is all of that. So that's what we're going to be getting into tonight. And so I think, Leslie, you said you already put that question out there. Oh, can't hear you.
I muted myself. Hold up. We just had one response. I really want everybody to just kind of pop in to the questions or even to the chat. You can do either one. Just let us know what adjectives you would use. Tiffany, hi Tiffany, how are you? Said trust, honesty, love, acceptance were the 4 words that she put in. I love those. Those are really good. So keep putting them in. We'll keep reading them and kind of coming through. What were the adjectives that came up for you, Roni? You start thinking about that.
There's got to be humor. Like there's definitely got to be this place for me to be able to cut up. There's got to be trust. And that means trust for me to like, not just to share myself, but also to work out things. So like when I'm struggling with something, whether that's just I'm being problematic and I'm like, this don't seem good to me, and tell me what, like I need there to be enough trust to be able to do that with them. And then I just need there to be trust in the sense that I know what I say to you is never leaving. So yeah, if we can laugh and I can trust you, I'm so Gucci.
You're good.
Like can food be involved in my sister circle? Like I need that.
Food is good. Claretta adds mutual vulnerability, which is great because that's what I was going to mention was vulnerability for sure is important for me. And also like the one word that just like, I don't know, just to wash over me was warmth. Like I want the circles that I'm in to feel warm. I want there to be a level of calm amongst us, even when things are crazy everywhere else or things are out of control elsewhere. So to me, it's like there's a grounding nature to it. Tiffany says, don't idolize her because she's problematic, and I too can be trashed. Listen, we're all trash, Tiffany, out here, so don't worry about it. Excellent. And Tiffany adds food and booze. I mean, hey, listen.
I mean, you cannot miss it with me on that. Can we drink and eat? I'm good.
Absolutely. Keep typing yours in there. We'll keep sharing those. So Roni, I think you're going to start us off with a little talk about intentionality, right?
Yeah, so we can talk a little bit about being intentional. So one thing I was thinking about was kind of what does intentionality look like with sisterhood? Like, what does it mean to do sisterhood on purpose, right? And so the one thing I thought a lot about today was, so I'm in a sorority, I'm an AKA, and one thing we used to do when I was in undergrad, I pledged at the Kappa Mu chapter of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated at SMU. And so one thing we used to have once a month was called sisterly relations. And like, I would be so mad when we did sisterly relations at the time, because I was like, I guess I was 20, and I was like, sisterly relations, why do we have to do that? What is it? What are we doing that for? But really what sisterly relations was about was it was about being intentional in our sisterhood. Does that make sense? So it was like literally coming together on a Friday. It might have been going to the movies. It might have been sitting around and talking, eating popcorn. And so that really laid a foundation for me as far as being intentional about sisterhood. And now that I'm 40 and I'm still friends with many of my sorority sisters, those sisterly relations, that intentionality, it has carried so many of us, right? And then I thought a lot about like, should you be, when you're being intentional, right? If you come away from this course and you're like, this course has been wonderful, are you now supposed to be looking for your people? Like, are you looking for your, I don't have the answer, y'all. I hope y'all know that I didn't come on here with like all the answers.
We got it all down, y'all. No, we don't. This is a collaborative conversation.
What does that mean? Like, do you think, Leslie, that you ought to be intentional in the sister circles you already have and maintaining them? But also, if you are missing like, if you feel like you want that, like, should you be looking? Should you just let it come to you? Is it organic? I don't know. What's the answer?
It's like hard to say. I mean, I think intentionality is really important, especially if we look at it in the context or in comparison to our biological or familial sister bonds, right? So the intention isn't necessary there because we're forced, right? We know we have to interact with them. We already know. So to me, to create that same type of bond, you have to kind of replace that familial obligation with intentionality. Like that's the flip side of that coin to kind of build a sisterhood really well. So I think that is important. I don't know if I would say that you can intentionally go out and be like, let me get my roster together and put my sisters, right? Like that's a little hard. But I will say though that the intentionality comes in is when you do meet people that you connect with, is what do you do with that connection? Like when you sense a spark with somebody that you think, well, this could be somebody that this could grow into a great friendship. What do you do in those moments? Like, what is the intentionality of trying to create an authentic connection with somebody that you don't know that well yet? And how do you go about getting to know them better? And how do you use intentionality in that part, I think, of relationship building? Because that will help you actually form a bond that you're not like, I don't know. And of course, most of my bonds have happened by happenstance. But I will say that especially as you get older, which we're going to touch on a little bit later, those happenstance moments just become few and far between. You don't have sorority. You're not in classes with people anymore. You're not, so you don't want to be best friends with your work people because, that's something else. All of those things. So you kind of have to get it in where you can and kind of like figure out where you're going to find people.
Right.
And, so I know a lot of parents I talk to, they say like, well, most of their adult friends they hang out with are just the parents of their kids' friends because it's easier. Like they're going together. We'll just go do whatever. Everybody is fine with each other. It's fine. So yeah, I think there may be a happy medium there, maybe. Yeah, where it's like, I don't know if you could be filling up your roster sheet, but you can kind of, have that in the back of your head a little bit as you're evaluating interactions, as you're deciding how to get to know someone a little bit better.
Yeah, I'm definitely with that. That's you know, meeting people, like you said, as you get older, that happenstance sort of goes away. And my Leslie story for all of y'all is when the textbook story went viral, of course, everybody was just, you know, in my face. Hey, how you doing? Hey, best friend. Like, and all of it was like freaking me out because honestly, I feel like I'm not like I'm friendly and I'm fun, but I'm also like a really guarded person. I'm like, yeah, I need you to back up a little bit. And I tell people all the time, if somebody wants to be my friend more than I want to be their friend, I'm truly like shook. I'm like, I don't like that. You want to be my friend too hard. I don't like it. But when Leslie reached out to me, and I can't remember if it was the first interactions, I can't even remember, but it was just like, tell me what you need, blah, 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 blah. Like it was so like just zen. Like she was like, I'm here, I got you, and was chill. And I was like, oh my God, like I really like this person. Like she is regular. So then trying to think about, okay, so we kind of met obviously by happenstance, but then that level of intentionality, like I made the intention of like, okay, let me go to her page, let me see what she says, you know, let me see if she got some peoples on here, let me see her picture. Like it became intentional in the sense that like engaging with, you know, Leslie at the time, and then just sort of watching grow from there. So like you said, I guess you're not walking around going, you know, let me put somebody on my roster. But when you meet someone and that connection is dope, just out the gate, you go with it, you know, you go with it. So I guess that's the intentionality part, and less, like you said, filling up your roster.
Though now I'm like, should we each have a roster? Like now you got me really thinking because I could fit really good in my bullet journal real quick. I could have a roster to fill out, you know, slide people around. I don't know. I mean, I think there may that could be a test. Maybe one of y'all want to try it. I don't know. I ain't got a lot of time. However, maybe you could have like a sisterhood roster and like spend a year like really trying to like make that a goal and cultivate it. I don't know. That would be interesting to think of what the outcome would be of that. How your interactions would change. Like really, when you really are like out here like, I got a spot for a jokester. You funny. Let me see. You know what I'm saying? Like I just feel like there's a way in which we can do that with like intentionality and honesty, and it could be kind of fun. I don't know. Maybe I don't know.
Listen,
I'm just talking here, but
it's shooting your shot. Like, why don't we shoot our shot with friends? You shoot your shot with somebody you want to date. Like, shoot your shot with a friend. Like, hey, I love having sort of an age range. It's like, oh, cool. I need me a good 20-something-year-old. She dope. I like her. That's cool. I need somebody with little kids so I can like play with them. Let me find somebody on my list for that.
yeah, I'm saying, look, we all of us gonna have little rosters to put out. Oh, Tiffany saying me too. Leslie's vibe is so warm and beautiful. I remember our Sandra Bland hug. I remember that too, Tiffany. It was the first time we met. I felt a connection. Tiffany is awesome. Y'all can also raise your hands and talk. So if you want to, feel free to. Okay. Well, I think intentionality is clearly a key component to building good sisterhood. How we employ that, a little bit up for debate. We certainly, I feel like it's a little bit like to each his own, right? How you go about using intentionality. But I think you do need to, like anything else, if you make it a priority, that becomes an intention. So it's definitely important. So I touched on this a little bit, but one of the other topics we want to talk about is like how sisterhood changes throughout your life and how that means you have to kind of adjust the ways you maintain it, which I think we don't talk about enough, right? So when you're in school, I don't know about y'all, but I grew up in New York City. I was in like, gifted programs all growing up. So I didn't go to school with my neighborhood friends who went to the local school. I got like, had to take a train or take a bus or whatever to go to school. And then I went away to high school. So I always had like school friends. And then I had friends, that were in my neighborhood that were like my family. And part of that whole thing, I remember just being like, oh, it's okay if I don't talk to my friends for 3 months over the summer. I'll see them in the fall. Or it's okay if I don't really see my friends in the neighborhood during the week because I'm busy at school. I'll catch up with them on the weekends. But as we get older, we don't have those same structures to fall back on where your interactions are explained away by circumstance because people's feelings get hurt. They want you to be checking in more or you're checking in too much. Like there's a lot that goes into it. So I just wanted to how you found that transition to kind of like, even in college, you have like social settings that are geared towards you doing things together. Girls' nights out, that's like every weekend in college. So you start your family or you go start your career, you're out in the world, and what happens? We don't have a container or a context for saying, okay, now this is how you act. This is how you maintain friendships as an adult. It just seems like this whole of people are just expected to. I actually don't know what we're expected to do. Not be good friends, really, because I don't. There's no instructions on that.
Ain't nobody told me nothing.
No, nothing. Nobody mentioned anything to me about it.
They just left us out there. This is something I struggled with a lot when I graduated from college, because I graduated from college in May of 1999 and I got married in June of 1999 and I was pregnant in January of 2000. So I grew up real fast. Like, it was like I was 21 and a senior in college, and then I was married, and then I was a mommy. And that was at 23. Lilo and I were married. We had relocated back to Houston. And I mean, of course, my sisters and my cousins were here, but like that girlfriend piece was so missing. Like, it was so like, nope, nobody else is doing this. And then how do I, they were still going out and traveling. Like, I still mess with my girlfriends now because they'll be like, yeah, we went to Vegas. I'm like, yeah, I had 2 kids by then. So yeah, I went to Vegas and I didn't go. But, but just, so then it became this way of like, okay, how can I still, maintain these sisterhoods, even though I'm really at a different point in my life than they are. And then even now, sort of on the flip side of it, my kids are 14 and 17, right? So they're independent and, getting ready to leave the house. And then I have a lot of friends who have littles, so I guess in that same vein of being intentional, you don't have to be intentional maybe when you're young, right? Like that. And then you don't have to find ways to connect, like you said, in college, because we going to the Kappa party, we going to the beach. Mm-hmm. We're doing that on a Thursday night. But then in adulthood, you really have to like sometimes you have to make a decision and recognize, I guess, that the sisterhood has changed, that like, this is a different place in my life. And then it's going to look different in another 10 years. So when I'm 50 and Kobe is 27 and Danny is 24, like, that's going to be different. Retirement is going to be like, all of those things are going to be different. So I guess maybe the key there is looking at sisterhood throughout our lives is like that it changes almost by decade, right? Your 20s is one kind of sisterhood, your 30s is another, and then if in your sister circle, let's say you have a sister circle like ours, right, where the age range is like 26 to 40. Well, in 10 years, you and I are going to be 50 and Jasmine is going to be 36. I mean, like, it's just something different. And so maybe he is recognizing that it just looks different at every stage.
Absolutely. It does look different. So I would ask the question of all y'all, raise your hand if you want to respond, which is, when did you kind of notice that there needed to be a change in your approach to sisterhood and kind of making those connections? And I think you're right, that this whole idea of like not talking about the fact that it changed. And I think that that's even more like, that makes the maintenance of the relationship more difficult. So, when you have a friend, in fact, my college roommate's staying with me right now. She came to visit with her son, and we've lived in different cities since we left school pretty much, but we've been able to maintain a relationship because we decide like we're going to see each other once a year, no matter where we're living. We're going to make sure that, we do specific things to make sure that we still remain connected to each other. But you have to talk about those things. It can't be just like, oh, I'm okay not talking to you for 5 months, but the other person feels really differently and they want check-ins. Like, you have to maintain the relationship as you would any other one. Sharonda wrote that great piece, and I meant to actually include it. I'll make sure I post it in the group. That great piece about how Black love is not just romantic love. And so, when some of the things that she was touching on in that article was about how, we stay so focused on romantic love that we then, all the other kinds of love that come into our lives, we tend to put them as second tier, and how that can be detrimental to fostering healthy relationships and a more robust love in your life, generally speaking.
Yeah.
I'm gonna unmute you, Asia. Wait. Hey, Asia, you're unmuted. Uh-oh. It says she's connected. I don't know if you're muted like on your device. You are unmuted though on our end. So,
I'm
oh,
hearing
there
you.
you are.
Okay.
Hey.
Hi. I just wanted to speak to, I guess, kind of both of the points that you and Ronnie just made. And I kind of touched on this last week with my comment when my mic was also not working. Just about like, I spent most of my 20s helping to support my best friend who had become a mom at 19. And so, I was going to doctor's visits with her, researching schools and doing all these parenting support things, understanding immediately that like our relationship changed immediately out of high school.
Mm,
And then, 10 years later, when I became a mom and, her kids weren't like doing daycare pickups and things like that, they were actually like getting extracurricular activities. I didn't have that reciprocity and
mm.
that patience of understanding that like sometimes all I want to talk about is like diaper rashes and, all of these types of things that were a period of time in her life where I offered that type of support, but wasn't given that later on when I was in that same position. So I tried to explain to her that like things do change, but because she was the one that changed, she never really got that. So I think that is like really important and great that like Ronnie understood that like her life got real serious real fast, and then being able to like move along with the changes and still being able to maintain those relationships with her friends today.
Yeah, and I think that's a question like any relationship you're trying to maintain and honor, you have to take into account the other person's needs just as much as your own. So I say that all the time. I will hear people say like, oh, my friends with kids, all they want to talk about is their kids. I'm like, what if they kids though? Like, what, what else they
What,
gonna talk about? This is how I feel. Like if you got kids and you're not talking about them, I'm gonna be like, girl, what's wrong with you? Like, what's happening in your house exactly? Don't you got kids over there? And I'm not saying that that means that moms like that's all they talk about, but I also don't hold it against them. I mean, this is what takes up all their day, just as much as I want to talk about whatever I spend my day doing. Like, I don't know, I just a lot of the like things that are attached to those types of things. It's very unsisterly to me because we do need to like have that reciprocity that Asia was just talking about. Thank you, Asia. Um, Claretta also said that she's not around a lot of Black folks, so she noticed that she has to search for them where she's living now. It's intimidating. It's so intimidating to make friends as an adult. Oh my gosh, that is so true. You feel
and
very vulnerable.
no, why nobody says
Mm-mm,
that? It's like an
mm-mm,
intimidating thing as an adult to like, because like you are like, okay, you are who you are as an adult. Not that you don't change and whatever, but still like you kind of like, no, I don't really do that. Like that ain't really me. So then as an adult trying to make friends and you like, oh, and then you meet friends who do whatever that is that you don't do, and you like, I like them, but I don't do that. And I can't hang out with them, but I mean, like it is, you're like, you know what? It's one of the times when I'm so glad that my grandmother had all those children and I have all those first cousins because
she's
I'm
like,
like,
Ollie, I got a whole bunch of pick from already.
friends built in. And when I'm tired of one of them, I just go to the next.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I think that, but Claretta does touch on a really good point, which is moving, the transient nature of today's world. I mean, I've lived like everywhere, Philly, Chicago, Indianapolis, New Orleans, Charlotte now, Michigan. I've lived all over the place. And so there is this like, I get to a new city, I'm like, okay, let me see, who am I gonna find my people here? And it's gotten harder the older I've gotten. Like when we started moving when I was in my 20s and even my early 30s, I would drop in a city and it would be like, oh, this is where the young professionals hang out or the young whatever hang out. So we can start making some connections. But I think at some point it just becomes much, much more difficult for sure to do that.
Yeah.
So we were going to touch a little bit on tech and sisterhood. I mean, hey, we're all having this conversation via the internet and lots of technology being employed. We use Facebook Live. We're using GoToWebinar now. We use the Google Docs to share the syllabus. I mean, all of the things that we even utilize for this course to get together to talk about this subject. Increasingly, I think tech becomes pretty critical to sisterhood. Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? Do you think it's both? What are your thoughts, Roni? And everybody else, please weigh in about your thoughts on tech and sisterhood.
I think it's mostly good. Like mostly, I think it's good because I can have my trusty phone with me, and in the sense of text messaging as a tech thing, right? You know, sometimes during the day, I may just be thinking of my girlfriend and be like, girl, do you remember when we got all the way drunk when I turned 21 and then had to go play a flag football game and then we almost died? And like, I can do that in the middle of the day, crack up laughing and have a moment, like have a connection with my girlfriend. And so in that way it helps. I think also it helps in taking down that intimidation factor a little bit, right? In meeting new people, you know, Facebook or Instagram, you know, seeing somebody's hair, you can definitely connect with someone over hair. One of my very dear friends, Stephanie Beals Reynolds, or Stephanie Beal, I met her because I wrote a wrap up about Scandal, right? And then she was just like, this girl is hilarious. And so it just became this sort of back and forth. So in that way, I think it can be so positive for just sort of taking down some of those barriers. And then also for the people who you've known for years, it's a great way to just connect, reconnect. Sometimes I'll just send my girlfriends who I don't see every day a picture of the kids and be like, you know, your little niece is over here and I'm about to fight her. Like, you know, it could be, and you know, I'll do y'all like that in a minute. Y'all little nephew, he close to death. So if y'all want to come pick him up, you go right ahead. So in that way, it's great. And then obviously maybe the downside or the downside can be that sometimes intimacy can be lost, especially if there hasn't been maybe a physical connection in a while. You can sort of just lose track of each other, even with all the technology we have. So it's almost like technology is a great way to continue to supplement the relationship.
Right.
But you can see each other and hold each other and like just smell each other's hair, and then then tech can get us through to the next, you know,
to the next time.
Right? Yeah, I found it mostly to be a great tool, although there are times when I'm just like, okay, or it's like if there's a disagreement or like we're not seeing eye to eye on something, then technology can be the worst thing ever because like you can't hear each other over text.
No inflection. You can't get any of the emotion. You can't see when somebody's operating from hurt, not, you know, anger. A lot of that does get lost in translation. You know, FaceTime is good for that, I have found, because at least there's some sort of verbal cues you can take from each other. But text, I mean, look, texting is the devil sometimes. Tiffany shares that she says tech and sisterhood's mostly good. We can connect in ways that were impossible for generations before us. Remember how expensive long distance phone calls were? Oh, well, I'm old, so yes, I do remember, Tiffany. And I remember we had to have a phone card. Oh my god. Yeah.
Be like, do you have a long distance?
Enough minutes? You got a call plan? What's happening here?
Plan for that, because you can't be talking to her all the way in Chicago like that. That's money.
And when cell phones first came out, it was like you had weekend minutes, you had your weekday minutes, you had your evenings and weekends. Listen,
these children will never know.
I'd be like, I can't, call me back after 7. Like, I'm not playing.
7, I cannot. I'm out of minutes for the month, but tomorrow's the first, my minutes gonna roll over.
Call me back then. Yes. Oh my goodness, that's really funny.
Serious.
Oh yes, I remember all of that. But yeah, I mean, I will say, like, maintaining friendships is definitely easier with these tools, but also, you know, I always wonder if they become kind of something that we use as a crutch too much, because sometimes it can stop you from being vulnerable when you feel like you're interacting with a screen and not a person. And so a lot of that, you know, goes back to the intentionality piece, which is like, it's a tool, but it can't be what defines your connection, right? It's a way of connecting, but it's not the definition of connection, which I think are two different things, especially if you're really trying to be authentic with each other, going back to some of the words: trust, honesty, love, vulnerability, you know, all of those things that we were talking about being what we're looking for in a sisterhood circle. So Roni and I are in a sisterhood circle, the Bayhive. Who's in here from the Bayhive? Asia's in here. I think just Asia tonight. and she wanted to talk. I'm gonna just turn on. You said this was your part of the class. I'm gonna let you tell that story.
Talking
Because I
about,
don't even know the whole story. Thinking about it, I was thinking about this when you said it. I was like, wait, how did this happen? Because I don't even remember fully the whole story.
I truly want Asia to jump in when I miss a piece, because I don't think.
Yes.
Between the 8 of us, is it 8?
It's 8.
So between the 8 of us, we have the whole story. So you're just really getting like 3/8 of the story tonight between me, Leslie, and Asia. But
Asia's our recorder. She will remember everything.
Yes, Asia has like the memory of like, I don't even understand it. She'd be like, oh no, that was on a Thursday.
She'd be like, here's a screenshot. This is when you said that thing. Remember, this is the time you was gonna go do that.
My memory got locked up because of this. What? I didn't even know. So when we were talking about tonight's show, and then we were talking about, tech and technology and the sisterhood, I was thinking, well, the perfect segue is to move into the Bayhive and sort of how we all, came to know each other. So this is the story that I remember. Okay. Now, again, I'm going to miss these. When I miss them, I'm going to toss it over to Leslie and Asia. They can fix it. Right. So it started off, somebody, Julian Long, he said, you need to know this person named Kirsten, because she has a group, right? And she had this Black people group. So, okay, that was fine. But then from the Black people group, she made a Black woman think tank group, right? So she made that group. So I was in the big Black people group, and then I went over to the Black woman think tank group. I'm not sure if all the Bayhive was in the big Black people group or whatever. I don't know. So we all sort of ended up in this group for Black women, and Kirsten was the admin over the group, whatever. So it was fine. Things were good. We were all Gucci, except, Jasmine wasn't in that group, by the way. She wasn't there yet. We hadn't met Jasmine yet. I didn't know Jasmine yet. So some things happened, as they do in groups. Group fell apart. It was quite sad. I don't know if I was like,
out for the Black woman think tank. I love the Black woman think tank.
It hurt my feelings. I was literally like, we fell apart, y'all. We couldn't do it. We couldn't make it, but it was some bad stuff. But anyway, so from that group, I was just like, I left that group and I was like, I ain't got no more group. I'm good. Then one day, maybe Leslie or somebody added me to another group, right? Who were women who left Black women's think tank.
And we was like, we need a place. We still want to share our, whatever.
All the people who kind of were like side-eyeing what went down, like, I ain't like that. So cool. Like, we ended up in this other place, and it was fine. Like, things were good. At this point, I kind of know who Jasmine is, because Jasmine is either engaged she's maybe engaged to her now husband, who used to be one of my students when I was a teacher. So I kind of peripherally know Jasmine. I'm like, oh, okay, she cool. I see, Foz picked a real one. she wild. I love it, right? So we're in this group, and then somehow that group morphed into another group. But I don't think it was bad. I just feel like it just went to something else. I can't remember why though. So then
I remember why, but I'm not saying it on here.
Okay. There you go. So
we didn't leave the other group. It just was like, some of us wanted to talk about something specific, and so we went and it was like a splinter, but we didn't leave the other group. It was like, we're all in the other group, and if you want to talk about these specific things, come hang out over here also. Yeah,
exactly. So that was
there was a hair and nail group. There was a whole bunch of like kind of splinters so people could silo the topics.
Right. And then somewhere around that time, I reached out to Jasmine, because Jasmine and I had just been interacting and connecting just on Facebook, on regular Facebook streets, not in the group streets, right? And I was like, hey, I want to add you to this group, because I felt it, right? I was just like, I just feel this with her. I just know she gets in a group and she's like, oh, y'all real up in here. So it started like that. Then one of our sisters, Sharonda, was going on a Facebook break. Mm-hmm. And of course, when you go on Facebook break, you deactivate your page. She was like, but I still want to talk to y'all every day. Because we were already in that group. We were kind of talking every day. We were sharing articles, whatever. Like, we were already there. And so she was like, I'm going to make a group me. And the rest is history.
Literally. She pulled us into the group me, and then Ryan was like, oh, we got to add Jasmine in. So Jasmine got added in, and then it's been like 3 years that we've been on the same group me chat. And it was funny because I remember when we started the group me chat, all of a sudden, I remember like this feeling of like I just started relaxing in the conversations. I was like, oh my God, this is so much better than whatever was happening on Facebook, because I felt like we were able to interact on our own time. So it didn't need there wasn't an immediacy of it. It was like, okay, I'll catch up. One of the women in the Bayhive, their like, secondary name is I'm catching up, because that's like a thing. You're like, oh, I've been away all day. Let me catch up on these, 100 messages and see like, okay, I'm caught up now.
And has a whole conversation at 4 a.m. with us. And we be like, dog, we still sleep. But we catch up when we wake up.
Though. But we'll catch you when you wake up. Or you'll respond to like all of the things. But I remember just being like, oh, this is so nice. It was like, it felt like walking into like a clean room with like, it was just like nothing but us. And it was really, really different. That transition I remember. So
I agree. Once that group me happened, it really did shift the dynamic and made it less about a sort of internet techie social media thing and really made it a relationship. Because same thing, I sort of felt more relaxed and to talk about like just the mundane things in my day. Like, girl, I'm in this nail shop. Look how she did my nails. Like, it was like just like it, but it didn't feel like that was a thing to do on Facebook. It's just strange. And so that was that. And then I want to say maybe during that time was when a few of us first started meeting, because when everybody came to Houston for my birthday in September, that wasn't the first time that it was the first time we were all together, but separately people had met, right? So I met Jasmine. I think that was it. So there were these separate meetups, and then there was the first big meetup, which was during my birthday. So, which was just awesome and also scary, I think. I mean, I would agree that I would think that everybody would probably say there was this little like, okay, we've been loving each other real hard in this group meet, but are we really gonna like it? Like, okay, is everybody gonna
I think all of our friends and family were like, you're just going to meet these people you don't, like most of them you don't know. I mean, we was staying at Roni's house. I mean, her family was like, but what if, then Dan was like, what if they steal stuff? Like, that's funny, but it's not, because it's like, we really, like, it was a leap of faith, if you will.
My aunties couldn't believe it. They still just was like, so you ain't never met these? It's people staying here you ain't never met? They staying in your house? I was like, yes, ma'am. They gonna spend a night? I'm like, yes. Y'all, you ain't never met them or nothing? How you know they're not crazy? How you know they're not gonna hurt you? I'm like, first of all, calm down. First of all, like that was so like, but I think part of it was just that we had made such a great connection that literally, and you can ask Lilo, I don't entertain. Like, I'm one of those people, I'm like, I don't want people to stay here because like, what if they're not comfortable? But like when the conversation started happening, it was like, no, y'all come stay here. Like, that's gonna be everything. Like, so that's kind of the loose story of the Bayhive. I'm sure Asia's got some things to add.
Yeah, feel free to raise your hand, Asia, if there's anything missing you think that's important. But I guess from that story, what I would want to talk to you about is like what works, what doesn't, what have you found to be unique? I mean, obviously this trail to get to this secondary communication tool, which is why we named this group chat Save My Life, because it is that thing of like, I check in, we all check in, and we all have very different needs within the context of that. We have single people in our group that'll be like, hey, I'm going on a date. This is where I'm going. I'll check in when I get home. Yeah. There's a safety component to it. Then it's like, okay, we have people with young kids. And so there's discussion about raising children, there's discussion about education. Certainly all of our careers come into the conversation and kind of supporting each other through all of that. So what do you what makes it work? And did we, I don't know if we started out with intentionality, but I feel like once we transitioned to the group me, that became, I feel like the intention became very deliberate, and that we talk about it. We talk about it even now. We talk in the group about what we like about it, why it works for us. It's a topic of conversation pretty consistently. So I guess I'm just curious from your perspective, Roni, what do you think makes it work so well?
I think the thing that makes it work was something you touched on, I think maybe last week, was removing the mask. So what works in sort of building a sister circle is that there has to be vulnerability. Somebody said at the top of the class, there has to be vulnerability. There has to be like, I don't want to talk today. Like there has to be that. That works. There has to be that you can't get in your feelings if you don't hear from Leslie all day, because you know that at the end of the day, Leslie loves you. And Leslie might just have 700 things going on that day. And she doesn't have time to get in there and say, hey, so there's got to be this level of vulnerability and understanding. I think that works. But also, I think on the flip side of that, what makes it work is that we are accountable to each other. Like, even if my day is going to be crazy, like I teach on Mondays. And so there are days when it's a heavy teaching day, when I'm talking for, 8 hours, when I'll say, hey, teaching today, love y'all, whatever. So everybody does try to, and not even try, I think everybody, if they're going to have a super busy day, I mean, Sharonda was on the run today. Hey, I'm busy today, don't have time, love y'all. So that really works. That works so well. That level. And like I said, of course, the level of vulnerability. And then I think what also works is that there are no like, don't talk about that here things. There's definitely things that, we will content warn or trigger warn about things or whatever, but everybody in the group is safe enough to be able to say, to be able to tell you, this is what's happening in my marriage, or this is what's happening for me in my dating world. This is like, we can talk about all of it. And then I also think my last thing about what makes it work is that I'm always on their side. Like, if Leslie come in the group and she like, girl, my neighbor, I'm like, what she do? She better not. If they just says, girl, let me tell you what this man on the bus did. What's his name? Where he at? Because he better not. I will string him by his toes for you. Like, we go so hard for each other. It's like there is, and so I think for Black women especially, there are oftentimes that things happen to us, whether it be in your marriage, whether it be with another sister, whether it be at work, just in the street, and you just don't feel validated. And you feel like people expect you to be strong enough to handle it, that you are not seen, and so this space, a group chat, a healthy group chat of sister women's and sister friends that you love, I think it works because you can be validated and that you can be heard and seen. And that matters, because we know there's a meme on Facebook that says, in a world that tells Black women they're too loud when nobody really intended on listening to us anyway. Like, like that's really our lived experiences. So in that chat, it's like, and there can be 78 conversations happening at once. Like, I could be talking to Sharonda back and forth, and there'll be 17 messages in between there, but I know what I'm saying to Sharonda. And it works. And nobody's like, stop. So it's just, it works. So yeah, that works for us.
Yeah, that validation piece is pretty critical. We hadn't mentioned it yet, but I do think that that's a huge, need, I think, in sisterhood circles, especially amongst Black women, because of what you said. Because, there's this thing that happens where the things that harm us, the mundane things that harm us, and they are plentiful, become this thing where people will say, oh, well, that happens to everybody, or that it's common, and so therefore we should be accepting of it. And one of the things I think that really works in sisterhood circles is to be a place where that's not true. That in this place, none of this shit is common. None of the stuff that happens to us is acceptable. Even though we acknowledge that outside of here, that's the reality of the world. In here, we see it as aberrant. We see it as wrong. We see it as the thing that we fight against. And being clear about that, so that when the conversations come up, you never invalidate somebody's experience, and you never, trivialize the feelings that they have, because that's something else we just don't get in the world. Not even just people don't get that in the world. The ability to have your feelings validated. And so for me, that's what works the best, is this notion of, you know, validating each other against what the world would try to normalize about our interactions. Asia, you're unmuted again.
So I agree with all of that. I also think that y'all are always right. I think one of the things that I guess that I noticed, like when we first started up, because Sharonda was taking a break from Facebook, it was really what we do of like rallying, you know, to support her and going wherever she is, so that we can continue to support her for, you know, whatever she's going through. Because I mean, I deactivate like every couple of weeks because it's just overwhelming being on Facebook all the time. But to continue to have that opportunity to support each other in various ways. Today, I hate everybody's husbands. Tomorrow, I might like them again.
Lord, them husbands.
That's just the way that we roll.
Everybody today and their husbands. Everybody.
It's true.
But yeah, I think it's definitely an added level once we all met each other in person, to just kind of change things and to kind of change the dynamic. But we were fortunate enough that like it was a positive change and kind of just made us all tighter. But I was like really surprised and shocked that not one of y'all catfished me, because I was certain that like somebody wasn't going to be as hospitable or as beautiful or as witty or something, but everybody was like as legit as they are in real life.
And I think it was funny because I felt like when we all got together, it was this strange, like we each had a role in this group. I don't think we've named it yet, but in my head, I have like roles that we each play within the group and maintaining it, because that's one thing. And then separately, what we represent for each other. But that in the group, we are not defined by that role. Like that's not our value here, even though it is the role that we play. Because I think a lot of times, that's why I was kind of joking about that roster thing earlier, because I do feel like sometimes you'll feel like that. You'll feel like, well, I'm just the young one they have around, or I'm just the older auntie that people like to have around, or I'm just, you know, the one that does this. And so they like to have a professional person, or they like to have somebody who didn't get a college degree, or they like to have, like, there's this thing where people can have, and you feel like you're just plugging in a hole. And we have not allowed that to be the sum total of what we bring to each other, or what our value is to each other.
Not at all. And I definitely noticed that, like, you know, just sitting in Roni's living room when we were actually all together in the room and just seeing like everyone as full people, because like you said, we do navigate the world outside of the group one way, but on the inside we're kind of all everything, and are all quick to, like, you know, be the nurturer, to be the one who's, you know, look people up on Facebook to find out who sent you this mysterious text message. We it's just a really special place, and something else that despite, you know, some people who might be following either of you, who might have heard rumors or things about the Bayhive being just a bunch of petty, shady people, we really don't be talking about people in our group.
We really don't. It's funny.
Not at all. But just, I guess the last point I wanted to make is that when we do talk about people, just kind of in passing, that the politics that we have, like that you see in these internet streets, are the same things that we have inside of the group. So, you know, honoring people's gender identity and like all of the politics are the same inside and out, because we're all genuine people, which is like a breath of fresh air, because in these internet streets, you never know what you're walking up against.
It's true. It's funny you mentioned the whole gender identity thing, because I think one of the other things that works within the group, and I think it's a good characteristic of a strong sisterhood circle, is that it's a place you can work through your growing edges. That's not something you can just do face forward on the street. So we'll have conversations like, you know, I saw this posted and somebody said it was ableist, but I don't understand how it is. Does anybody have more information about that? And that will be like a 50, string of conversations back and forth amongst all of us discussing why it was ableist, where it came from, like all of those kinds of things. And so for me, it's like, oh, you can be vulnerable but honest in a space, like here's something I don't know about, but it not be like, oh, how dare you not know, whatever. It's about us trying to, grow together, and it being a safe space to do that work together.
Yeah, I love what you said, Adria. You said, when Sharonda decided to deactivate and she started the group me, she said we wanted to go where she was to support her. And that has to be like, that's like the pinnacle, I think, of our sister circle, is like going where she is, right? So when I'm going through it, when I'm writing my dissertation, when I'm figuring this out, when Leslie's going through, when Kirsten's going through, it's like we go where you are to support you. So whatever valley you're on, we there to support you. Whatever mountaintop you're on, we're there to support you. Whatever, no social media land you're in, we're there with you too. And so I think that is really what has been a thing for me personally in the group, is that in a lot of other sister circles that I've been in, especially people who've been around me physically my whole life or for many years, I've always been the athlete, the runner, the jumper, the weightlifter, I kick a bitch ass. Like I've always been that person, strong physically, like all of that. I'm still those things, but that also I don't have to be those things with this sister circle, because I just don't. And also I think because of that technology piece, that they met me in a different arena almost, right? Without ever seeing me stand up or walk into a room and like kick over a chair, right? So I was able to like meet them in that arena. And so that definitely is something that helped. And I think that happens for all of us, like, because everybody kind of met on Facebook, we were all able to not so much cultivate an identity, because I think we are who we are and we're real people, but knowing that I haven't known Asia since she was 17, that does change things, right? That she doesn't have to, there are parts of me that feel like, well, I've always been this to that person, I got to keep being that. Because we didn't have that history, we were able to build new history with each other. And then finally, I was going to say, meeting with a sister circle, loving on each other out loud, being revolutionary about your love. I just want to tell you, whoever you are, and we'll talk about that in just a second, sort of, what the hereafter looks like, right? Like what's next. But when that happens, there'll be people who won't like it. And I want you to be prepared for it, because I wasn't. I don't know if anybody else was, but I wasn't. I honestly did not think that was a thing. Although when I look back over my life, I was like, Roni, you should have known. Like, I hate, haters. Like, I hate that word, right? Because we overuse it. But I also have learned that because everybody doesn't have a sister circle, that when they see one and they think that it's great, or maybe they know, whatever, I don't really know. But there will be sort of, like my grandma used to say, they'll throw darts, right? But let that bring you closer, let that, defend yourself. Don't get me wrong, because, you don't play, but, but it will happen, and and you can't control that, who you are, who your sisters are. But like I said, I wasn't ready. I was like, we love each other and it's fun and it's beautiful and everybody should love it, and they won't. And that's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
It's my Mr.
Yeah.
Rogers. Okay.
That's okay too. That's okay too. I like what you said about building new history. Before you take over and close us out, I just wanted to touch on that, because I think that's something that we didn't talk about earlier. But this notion of, as an adult going into, and this intentionality piece, which is like, what role do you want to play in a sisterhood? Like how do you want to be received, and what are the things that you want to bring into the space? And that intentionality, as you're connecting with people, it's like, oh, this is somebody I can connect with over this, or this is somebody that I could see myself getting into a deeper relationship with, a deeper friendship with. And so thinking about that, what is that history you want to build? And thinking about those interactions as like, you know, it sounds silly because it sounds like a romantic thing, but like, what is the start of our love story going to be? What is it going to be? What are we? Where are we at with this? And like, what is that story going to sound like? Is it going to be like, well, I didn't really think I liked her that much the first time I met her? Or is it going to be like, oh, we had a connection and then we did this thing together, and that, you know, all of those things that add up into a relationship. And so thinking through what that could look like, I think is really interesting as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have reached, that's something that when I was in Kenya, I used to say that whenever we would get to a place in a car or a matatu, which is a really crowded taxi, they would say, we have reached. So we have reached the end of our time, but this is the sort of now what. So really what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw out some questions now. And then tomorrow I'm also gonna put them in our group where we are, the Defining Sisterhood thing. But I want you all to think, because I really want you all to be able to think about it a little bit. Like, what are some things that you think would be useful in maintaining some connections across distances? Not just with your own sister circle. So be thinking about that. Like if you have sisters that are in different states and cities and stuff, what are some tools? I mean, we've talked, technology stuff, but what are some things that you think are important to maintain those connections, right? But then also, where do we want to go with this knowledge? I think we've had a great time. I think there's some great resources out there that we've all been able to look at and share. But what do we want to do with this? What more do we want to sort of build out of this? I mean, because today was about the structure and, group chat saving your life. And so I'm going to put those, Leslie's putting them here in the chat. And then we'll also put them in the group as well. But just be thinking about that so that, let's see, what's this, March? Almost April. So let's be thinking about that so that maybe by May, we will have discussed it. And then maybe in May, it could be like, all right, so May, we're going to do whatever. I don't know. It could be some sort of online thing. Maybe it could be bi-monthly or whatever we think it should be to sort of maintain this idea of intentionality. Because again, Leslie said this last week, for both of us, this course has been healing because we were both sort of facing real life pain in sisterhood and sister circles. And so this has been healing. And so I want to continue the healing for not just for us, but also I think it's been healing for you all. Like I hear from y'all and y'all are like, man, I never thought about this, or this really messed me up. And I want us to be intentional about building each other up. And whether that means we become another sister circle, or this helps you make your sister circle stronger. Maybe it helps you make your sisterhood with your biological sister better. Maybe it's a way for you to reconnect. Like all of those things are important with the sort of where do we go from here. But again, thinking about, what does this course sort of look like in the long game, right? We've just sort of played a little short game, 4 weeks here, but what does this look like? What we want to see in May, or what we want to see in June, or what we want to see every 3 months or something like that. So we really want to hear from you on that so that we can all support each other in what that's going to look like. And then just be able to have all these healthy circles because Black Sisterhood really has saved my life. That's why I don't apologize for saying I advocate for Black women and children. Like I won't do it because I literally know that in the last 3-4 years in my life, for sure, I just wouldn't have been okay without Black women. Literally would not have been okay. So, making sure that we all have these healthy connections and tools to maintain this, what I think is a lifeblood. It really matters to Leslie and I, and we want to hear from you. So be thinking about that. Like I said, it's in the chat, and then we'll post it. I'll post it again tomorrow in the morning in our group so that we can sort of go from there and then see how we can hang out some more,
Yeah, for sure. A few things that popped up in my head as we were talking about it was like, could we listen to an album together once a month? And kind of chat about it, talk about the different songs and all that kind of stuff. Like, could we do a movie watch every once a quarter and watch a movie together, whatever it might be. So I'm just throwing out some ideas just to make it clear that like it could be anything. It could be something small, it could be something really big, it could be something super involved, it could be something incredibly simple, but really just thinking through how we take the lessons of the conversations we've had over the last 4 weeks into an area where we can put them into good use. You know, I have this like vision of like a sisterhood boot camp of like, you know, like different things we could put together to like, you know, foster friendship and what that looks like, recipe exchange, like all sorts of different things that we could do together. So anyways, I'm excited to continue this conversation with all of you. And for, you know, there's lots of folks that don't join us for the live class because they can't, but they have been watching the videos, they've been commenting, they've been emailing. So there's a lot more people that are interacting with the content that will be involved in this longer conversation. Well, thank you, Roni, for even saying yes when I just randomly group chatted you and was like, Roni, here's an idea I have. See, this is the thing. Everybody gets concerned about that when that's what I start. Like, so I have an idea. That's how it starts usually. So well, I have an idea.
You are always really good about not just having the idea, but being like, okay, I have this idea, and I've thought about it a lot. So because I'm usually the person that somebody comes to and says, Roni, I have this idea, and they're like, okay, now go work it out. And I'm like, wait, I wasn't ready. But Leslie will be like, I have an idea, and look, it can look like this. Let's talk to that. I'm like, oh, well, you already thought about it. Yeah, let's talk about it some more. I'm Gucci.
Yes, yes. So thank you for saying yes. And thank you all for joining us, for participating, for giving us your time and your space to even have these conversations. It's meant a ton to me personally. And Ryan, I have been so jazzed. Like we have a little prep call every Wednesday morning. And I'm always like, we're like, oh, I'm so excited for tonight. Like every week we just been like, oh, I'm so excited to talk some more about this tonight. Oh, this is going to be so great. Because for me, it's been a little bit like conversations Roni and I already were having. And we're like, oh yeah, we're going to just move it into this space. We could talk about it here too, which has been great and really wonderful. So thank you all for joining us. Roni, any final words before we part for the evening? And
all I will say is, you know, find your people. I said this when I did the interview about A Wrinkle in Time. When you find your people, whether it's on accident, on purpose, or a little bit of both, power in that, the safety in that is indescribable. But bigger than that, like what we can do to affect change in our community when you are with your people, yeah, it's everything. So it's not just a personal like helps me learn, grow, and I'm happy and all that, but also like community is such a huge part of who we are, I think, as Black women, that when we find our sister circles, the way we can affect community change and is, I think it's the key, because I think that Black women should be in charge of all this shit. So, yeah.
I think that's the truth. That ripple effect. We've been talking about it the whole 4 weeks, that ripple effect of sisterhood and what it does in the world is really, you know, one of the most powerful forces out in these streets. All right, everybody, that's it for us. We'll be in touch via email and also in the group. We love y'all. Talk to you soon. Bye. 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 Bye.